In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, there is one figure who stands above literally everyone else, a silent, godlike corpse on a golden throne. He is the Emperor of Mankind, and he's at the very heart of the Warhammer 40,000 universe. But here's the big question. Was he a savior who united humanity, or was he a tyrant whose own flaws doomed it to an eternity of war? All right, let's get in.
To really get to the heart of this, we have to go back. I mean, way back. Because the story of the Emperor isn't just a story about triumph. It's honestly one of the greatest tragedies ever told. It's the story of a dream so bright that it cast a shadow that has lasted 10,000 years.
So yeah, that's the big question we're really digging into today. Who was this being? What did he actually want? And maybe most importantly, where did it all go so horribly, horribly wrong?
To even begin to understand the Emperor, you've got to realize that almost everything about him is wrapped up in myth. We're talking millennia of war that has scattered, destroyed, or just plain rewritten any historical record. He's more of a legend than a man at this point. And this, right here, is the huge contradiction you have to grapple with from the very start. His followers, billions upon billions of them, see him as a literal god. But the Imperium that was built in his name? It's a brutal, stagnant, decaying empire, a corrupt shadow of what he wanted, a nightmare that betrays everything he supposedly stood for.
I mean, the gaps in our knowledge are just immense. The most popular origin story, the one about ancient shamans merging their souls together to create him, that's just a theory. We know almost nothing about his life before he showed up to conquer Earth, or how he managed to get so powerful so fast.
But what we do know, well, it's absolutely staggering. He was an Alpha Plus Psyker. We're talking the most powerful psychic mind in the entire history of humanity. He was a peerless geneticist who cooked up his 20 demigod sons, the Primarchs, in his own labs. And on top of all that, he was a military genius who engineered the superhuman Space Marines to be his perfect soldiers.
Now, to understand why he did what he did, you have to picture the world he was born into. His actions were, pretty extreme, but you have to remember, the times were beyond desperate.
Humanity's golden age of technology was long, long gone. We were scattered, broken, reeling from an age of galactic civil war and alien invasions. Earth, or Terra as it's called, was a total wasteland, ruled by savage warlords with forgotten tech. Humanity was right on the brink of extinction. It desperately needed a savior, or, at the very least, someone to pull it all back together.
And it was from these ashes that the Emperor rose up with this grand, unbelievably ambitious plan, a vision for a brand new golden age for all of mankind. His plan was called the Great Crusade, and it was just breathtaking in its scope. Step 1, conquer Terra. Then spread out and unite every single last human world under one banner. Step 2, enforce something called the Imperial Truth, basically a secular creed of science and reason that denied that gods and demons were real. See, he believed that if you could replace faith with pure logic, you'd literally starve the Chaos Gods, these awful, corrupting beings from another dimension, of the very belief they fed on. And leading the charge is 20 Primarchs.
But this is where the tragedy really kicks in. The Crusade was, for a time, a massive triumph. But it was all built on a foundation of some really fatal flaws. Flaws that were inside the Emperor himself.
And here's where it all gets so complicated. You have this central contradiction right at the heart of his character. He would viciously punish anyone who dared to worship him like a god, yet he walked around looking like one, with a glowing aura and eyes blazing with power. He preached a gospel of truth and reason, but he kept the single most important truth, the reality of the Chaos Gods and their psychic home, the Warp, a complete secret from everyone, and that includes his own sons. So it really all boils down to this. He was a terrible father. He saw his Primarchs as tools, as magnificent generals, but not his sons. And that emotional distance, combined with all his secrecy, created the perfect breeding ground for misunderstanding, jealousy, and, in the end, rebellion. His sons couldn't trust him because, well, he never really trusted them. And that rebellion, when it finally came, didn't just break his empire, it broke the entire galaxy. The event known as the Horus Heresy was the single most catastrophic war in all of human history. This whole galactic civil war came to a head at the Siege of Terra, a battle on a scale that's just hard to imagine. For months, the Emperor's own favorite son, his war master, Horus, led half of the Space Marine legions in a brutal assault on Earth itself. The fighting was apocalyptic. It turned the cradle of humanity into a literal hell.
In the final desperate hours of the siege, the true personal cost of the Emperor's failure became devastatingly clear. Aboard Horus's flagship, his most beloved and loyal son, the angelic Primarch Sanguinius, faced the traitor all alone. And he was killed.
At last, the Emperor teleported aboard that enemy ship to face his greatest creation and his greatest failure, father against son, one last time, with the fate of all humanity just hanging in the balance. In a psychic and physical battle that literally tore reality apart, the Emperor did what he had to do. He completely obliterated Horus, body and soul. But it was a victory that cost him absolutely everything. Horus had dealt him a mortal wound, leaving his body broken and his spirit shattered. He was carried back to the Imperial Palace and plugged into the Golden Throne, this massive arcane machine that just barely keeps his spirit anchored to his ruined body. And that's where he sits, to this day, a silent, psychic corpse, kept alive for 10 millennia by the daily sacrifice of 1,000 psychers.
Which brings us right back to where we started. His grand dream of reason and progress is dead. 10,000 years later, what is his ultimate legacy? What did it all mean?
And that's the ultimate tragedy, isn't it? The Imperium of Man became this fanatical, superstitious theocracy that worships him as a god, the very thing he fought tooth and nail to prevent. His grand design to save humanity from a putrefying nightmare ended up creating one. The arguments on both sides are pretty clear. On one hand, you could say he united a species that was on the verge of collapse and gave it the strength to survive in a really hostile galaxy. Maybe his brutal methods were just necessary. But on the other hand, his arrogance, his secrecy, his failings as a father, they didn't just contribute to the Horus heresy, they directly caused it. They doomed humanity to the fate it suffers today.
So at the end of the day, what's the verdict? Was he a tragic hero whose vision was just too grand for his flawed children? A cold-hearted tyrant who reaped what he sowed? Or maybe the most tragic figure of all, a man who tried to save humanity, but through his own failures only managed to build a much, much more elaborate cage? I guess that's for you to decide.